Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. Please go to Parler right now and follow Kyle Olson 4. Kyle Olson 4. KYLEOLSON and the number 4. All right. Last Sunday, Governor Whitmer moved our state backwards. I don't need to tell you that. There's a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. I'll be talking later to State Representative Matt Maddock, who is one of a group of Republican legislators introducing articles of impeachment against the governor. He told me earlier this week that the Sunday announcement was the straw that broke the camel's back. Of course, he's sitting in a position of power. The legislature should be included in these decisions, but the governor is just ignoring them and operating unilaterally. She can't do that, and the legislature can't let her get away with it. If they do, and she acts like she has been for the last 6+ months, we'll have what I'm about to play for you. Matt Maddock isn't the only one venting his frustrations. Here is Kelly Stafford, the wife of Detroit Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford.
I'm so over it. I'm over living in a dictatorship that we call Michigan. I understand there's a pandemic, and I understand it's very scary. I'm scared of it too. If you are at risk, do not leave your house until there's a vaccine. But shutting down all these small businesses, things that people have worked their life for, shutting them down again is not the answer, because they will not make it. So once we are able to leave our house, once this dictatorship decides to let us have some freedom, there will be nothing left. I'm just over it. I see all these people, and it brings me like to tears. Believe me, I know there's people out there that are stating, that's really ignorant of you. How could you say that? Listen, I know not everybody's going to agree with me. Not everybody's going to agree with my every move I make. That's life, okay? We state our opinions, we move on. This is my opinion. I feel for these small businesses. I feel for, it's not that I don't feel for the people that have COVID or the hospitals. I do. But this is my opinion. I do not feel like I do not like living in a place where they tell me what I can and cannot do. I live once. Again, this is my opinion. You have yours. Everyone has their own.
Leftists, of course, were unhappy. Jameel Hill, remember her? She was one of the people who helped politicize ESPN, which is something I never understood. Why would a sports network have to lecture us about politics? Anyway, she wasn't happy with Kelly Stafford. She tweeted afterwards, quote, Kelly Stafford is entitled to her opinion, but calling Michigan a, quote, dictatorship is irresponsible. We have to sacrifice personal freedom to get this pandemic under control. Think about that for a second. The failure is our government has not adequately supported people enough to incentivize them not to work. Do you think there's a single football fan who will disagree with Kelly Stafford? Guys who drink beer and drive trucks, that's who watches the NFL. How do I know? Because that's what's advertised. Watch any game. Oh, and they work, by the way. And they want to work because that's what gives us a lot of purpose. Not sole purpose, but purpose, meaning, providing for our families. That gives us satisfaction. Jameel Hill was just ripping off a socialist concept espoused Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She tweeted, quote, to get the virus under control, we need to pay people to stay home. Do you just want to stay home? I work from home. I have that luxury. I don't like it sometimes because it can get lonely and isolated, especially as winter is coming. But a lot of people don't have that luxury. Not to mention they want to work because it does something for them. The guy the media wants us to believe is the, quote, president-elect. He made another public appearance on Thursday. Here's a portion of what he said.
They talked about that in some detail. Thirdly, we discussed the need to help states with Title 32 funding for the National Guard. That's a fancy way of saying governors need to be able to get funding when they need to bring their National Guard into play. And National Guards are going to have to play this. It costs a lot of money.
Did you catch that? There's nothing wrong with Joe Biden. Just make him the president already. What's taking so long? Why do we need to wait until January? Just do it. Here he is a couple of minutes later.
We talked a lot about with the governors about what the immediate needs are. We're going to employ the Defense Reconstructed Act to be able to go out there and dictate companies build and do following things. We need much more testing. We need much more masking. We need gloves. I asked them each to go, and I asked the National Governors Association through the Governor Cuomo and the ones on the line to let us know what their shortages are.
What did he say there? Let me read this. Quote, we're going to employ the Defense Reconstruction Act to be able to go out there and dictate companies build and do following things. Let me read that again. Employ the Defense Reconstruction Act to be able to go out there and dictate companies build and do following things. The media wants us to believe this bumbling guy, got more votes than Barack Obama. Okay. There was a hearing on Capitol Hill this week with social media executives. Listen to this exchange between Senator Ted Cruz and Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey.
Let me shift to a different topic. Mr. Dorsey, does voter fraud exist? Let me shift to a different topic. Mr. Dorsey, does voter fraud exist?
I don't know for certain.
Are you an expert in voter fraud?
No, I'm not.
Well, why then is Twitter right now putting purported warnings on virtually any statement about voter fraud?
We're simply linking to a broader conversation so that people have more information.
No, you're not. You put up a page that says, quote, voter fraud of any kind is exceedingly rare in the United States. That's not linking to a broader conversation. That's taking a disputed policy position, and you're a publisher when you're doing that. You're entitled to take a policy position, but you don't get to pretend you're not a publisher and get a special benefit under Section 230 as a result.
That link is pointing to a broader conversation with tweets from publishers and people all around the country.
Mr. Dorsey, would the following statement violate Twitter's policies? Quote, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud.
I imagine that we would label it so that people can have more context.
How about this quote? Quote, third-party organizations, candidates, and political activists. Voter fraud is particularly possible where, quote, third-party organizations, candidates, and political party activists are involved in, quote, handling absentee ballots. Would you flag that as potentially misleading?
I don't know the specifics of how we might enforce that, but I imagine a lot of these would have a label pointing people to a bigger conversation.
Well, you're right. You would label them because you've taken the political position right now that voter fraud doesn't exist. I would note both of those quotes come from the Carter-Baker Commission on Federal Election Reform. That is Democratic President Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker. And Twitter's position is essentially voter fraud does not exist. Are you aware that just 2 weeks ago in the state of Texas, a woman was charged with 134 counts of election fraud? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that.
If I tweeted that statement with a link to the indictment, would you put a warning on it that says, well, the Democratic Party position right now is voter fraud doesn't exist?
I don't think it's useful to get into hypotheticals, but I don't believe so.
You don't believe so? Well, we're going to test that because I'm going to tweet that and we'll see what you put on it.
This is why I plugged Parler earlier. It's the only place that respects our First Amendment rights. Kyle Olson 4. Kyle Olson 4. KYLEOLSON and the number 4. Join me there. You can stay on Facebook and Twitter and constantly battle content moderators who hate your views and probably hate you too, or you can go to a place where your voice is not censored. It's up to you. This is the Kyle Olson Show.